Ladies and gentlemen, next we have another panel discussion, and this is going to be our last panel discussion. So I request everyone to please be over here. So the topic will be the tech revolution continues navigating the changing landscape in 2024 and beyond. And for this, we will be calling our panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome Jaswant Kumar Arkala, the Director of Customer Success Loop, Nehul Goradia, Co-founder Enabler One, Arpit Dugar, founder of Lab of Future. All of you, please put your hands together for all our panelists. And this is going to be our last panel discussion. So, thank you very much, all of you.
As an audience.
Okay.
I would like to have a seat in here and just be your audience. Sure.
Good evening, everybody. Well, we are aware we are the last session of the day of the event. So we'll try and keep it short and sweet as much as possible, and so that you guys can get off and enjoy the vibe, and it's still good weather for the rest of the evening. First and foremost, my name is Nehul Goradia. I'm the co-founder of a go-to-market advisory firm called Enabler One. I'll introduce us in terms of what we do, but please I'd like my co-panelists to also just.
Hi, very good evening, everyone. Is the microphone working? All right. So my name is Arpit Dugar, and I am founder and CEO of Lab of Future. We basically are into educational space, educational technology space, and the vision that drives us forward is creating a dent in the conventional education and try to bring in the skills which are required in the future. So for this panel discussion wherein technology revolution continues, there is a lot to contribute from the segment which usually industry doesn't focus on.
Hello everyone, I'm Jaswant Kumar. I'm working as Director of Customer Success for a health assurance platform in India called Loop. So health assurance generally means an amalgamation of health insurance and healthcare together. We work in association with a lot of insurance companies, and we work in 3 different pillars. We have health insurance as the first pillar, which would enable all our users to utilize a hospitalization in terms of need, and we have also added another layer called claims advisor who will visit the hospital and ensure that things are in place. The second pillar is ensuring unlimited primary healthcare that we are providing for all our users, and these are all virtual and in person. And thirdly, the third pillar is on technology part, wherein all of these services can be utilized with the use of one single app called Loop.
Great. So the reason why I didn't introduce myself first is because I've got 2 far more super champions next to me, right? What Enabler One does, as I said, it's a go-to-market advisory firm. We only work within the B2B technology industry, where we craft go-to-market, route-to-market strategies for tech organizations in their market penetration approach for across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and APAC. Right, and this kind of also gets me to the segue of the 3 different ways we'd like to approach the topic that we've been given today, right? Tech revolution, changing landscape in 2024 and beyond. And honestly speaking, I think considering that we're the last session, and considering the topic, it feels as if we're just summarizing everything that's been spoken over the last 3 days. IoT, blockchain, AI, and everything, right? So we're gonna kind of talk in 3 different perspectives, so to say, to address a broader thought process to how tech is impacting, the industry overall. So maybe you want to start off, Arpit, or
Yeah, I think yes, but I believe just to gauge the attention of the limited audience that we have right now here, we'll just do a quick round of kind of a brainstorming before we start, if you allow. All right. So from the audience, how many of you have been ardent fan of mathematics in your school days, or sciences, or any particular subject for that matter? Okay. At least one hand has raised up. Risen up. Okay. Two. All right. How many of us remember some of the formulas which we studied in our school days?
No.
No. Yes.
I'm teaching my daughter these days a little bit, so yes, a little bit.
Okay, I'll ask one of the most simplest formulas that all of us perhaps must have read when we were around 8, 9, 10 years of age. What is a plus b whole square? If anyone remembers? You remember? Okay. Anyone else? Wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a good, great number. Yeah, can somebody please tell this? Yeah, please. A squared plus b squared plus 2ab. Yeah, we do remember. Now you have a sheet.
I was going to say AB squared. Thank you very much.
Now you have a sheet of paper in front of you. Try using this formula and make a cube of that sheet. How many of us think we'll be able to do that? So maybe you can try. No, a plus b whole square. Try making a cube or a cuboid or a 3D shape using the same formula. No, gets difficult. Yeah. And that's where I think I'll try to bring attention back to this tech revolution. The whole landscape of industry, the biggest problem that the education space that sees is, by the time industry moves forward, education lags behind. And doesn't lag behind by 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, it's a decadal differences. So by the time industry is ready for Industry 4.0 revolution, I would say education is still struggling with Education 2.0. As we speak, technology is changing. By the time policies are being made with EdTech especially, things are left far too way behind. And that's where I think I would like to add my insights for this particular topic of the panel discussion, wherein the tech revolution is not just limited to the industries which are trying to shape up the world, but has to come down to a level wherein the awareness reaches to an early age level. And that's where I think we are also trying to contribute as my own organization, wherein we try to bring in these hands-on skills at that level, wherein whether it is artificial intelligence or brain-computer interface, blockchain, cybersecurity, your robotics, coding, programming, space sciences, astronomical sciences, to that level wherein children are able to understand what will be required for future. So on that note, I would like to, because here we have somebody who's working for the industry directly, here we have on the panel who's shaping up the policies how tech industry should launch themselves on the platform. So with this note, I would like to have you to add.
Sure, thank you. So as we said, right, we're going to have three very, very different perspectives. So you've got one who's going to talk ed tech, space tech, right? We've got a very seasoned expert talking around health tech, insure tech, right? So I'm going to go very, very different, right? I'm not going to talk AI. We've spoken a lot, I believe, during this conference. I'm not going to talk blockchain. I think the previous session was very, very nice, right? Covered a very, very strong point, right? And I'm not going to talk IoT. I think that's been done. Where I'm going to talk is where is the revolution happening, right? Where is the industry moving? What are the different trends coming out within technology, right? And I'm purely going to talk from 3 or 4 different perspectives, right? So where is it? And I'm going to talk from a revenue. We're all in this business to make money, right? We're in this business or selling technology, building technology, marketing technology to ensure that there is a significant revenue. Of course, with some who have a much more broader impact on the next generation and the nation per se, right? On health per se. But so I look at trends in multiple ways, right? So we look at trends in terms of everything moving to as a service today, right? You've got SaaS, you've got PaaS, you've got IaaS, you've got so many things. You've got everything moving into as a service, right? One of the trends I'm seeing is hardware as a service, and this is not cloud, this is not anything, this is hardware as a service, right? Hardware as a service is touted to reach about $300+ billion in the next 5 years, right? Just that space itself. Fintech. Now, fintech is huge as a wide word, right? Whether you're talking around payments, digital banking, blockchain and banking, whichever way we talk around it. $31.5 trillion is the market size expected by 2030, right? We talk MarTech, right? I mean, I was just in a panel on the next room with amount of technologies coming out to help marketeers ensure that your message reaches the end audience, whether it's a consumer or a corporate, right? We're looking at a $380 billion market share, right? Market size happening within the next 4 years. So when we look at these numbers, when you look at opportunities within these numbers, for us as tech practitioners, tech sellers, right? There's a whole host of arena that we typically tend to either go the extreme way, take the latest buzzwords and focus around on those buzzwords, or take it from a, okay, can I sell it, resell it, service it kind of a scenario. And then you've got all these trends coming in where there's a market open for the broader network, broader industry to really capitalize on, because customer trends are changing, countries are changing, the buying patterns are changing, everything is changing. So I'm going to kind of touch base from that perspective, I thought, and I'm going to now ask Josh to talk from his. So you got in, as I said, 3 very different perspectives today.
So before even I talk about tech and insurance, it's a legacy industry to talk about, right? So how it works? So generally, if 100 users have taken an insurance, if 5 of them claim the insurance company is very happy. And the moment it crosses 40, they're looking at losses. So that is the very reason why they get on with a lot of terms and conditions, lots of clauses which are very difficult to notice at the time of policy issuance. I'll give you an example. A few years back, there was a flood in Kerala, and a lot of shopkeepers had to face the wrath of floods. When they started claiming for their property insurance, the PSUs who have been very diligent in terms of taking their information at the time of policy placement were not keen on paying their claims at the time of the floods. So there is one particular private insurer who has actually sent drones to analyze the situation of the flood area, and they've asked the users to take a WhatsApp video of the damage, and they've got their claim settled. So that is a tech revolution for me in insurance. So that is where InsurTech is moving in India. And when you talk about CarTech, for example, one of our esteemed colleagues have talking about IoT, that's Internet of Behaviors, wherein we are in Internet of Technology, we are at IoTs. So this is another interesting space to kind of analyze, because we are talking about pay-as-you-drive kind of insurance segments coming in pretty fast, which would be much more effective in terms of the premiums, and they can also analyze various patterns around it.
So if I may, before I ask you to jump in, right, I've got one query, right, I'm going to try and a little twist it a little bit if you don't mind, right, let's open it to the room. How many of you have watched a movie called Ready Player One? One, two, three. Sorry? Yeah, Ready Player One. If you haven't, I sincerely recommend you guys go and watch that movie, and then take a look at what Meta is trying to do today. It's creating a universe which is virtual in nature, right? where you're now able to open shop fronts, you're now able to conduct business on a complete world which doesn't exist in reality, right? Beautiful movie, amazing one, came out years ago, but the impact that you see it with today is very, very different to what we're looking at, right? And the reason why I wanted to jump in earlier on this front was because when we look at that whole existence within the virtual reality space, right? And we see with the gaming technologies, the impact that we have on our kids, or that it has on our kids, right? In terms of learning skills, learning new hand-eye coordination techniques, and so on and so forth, right? I'd like to now ask, you to see how is these areas impacting, because you're talking about building the next generation within what you're doing at Lab.
Absolutely, I think very, very well asked, Nehul. This whole space of students, I was just going through a study done by World Health Organization, which talks about the upcoming challenges for alpha generation. These are not the sustainable development goals. These are not the the conventional challenges of the contemporary world that we see. But those are more laid down upon lines of depression, distraction, and technology overdose. Now, by 2037 is what the statistics says. Half of the young population is moving towards a stage of depression, distraction, because of technology overdose, because of digital and information overdose. Now, how do we bring them back to the skills which will be meaningful for them? Is something which first they should be empathizing with the situation, the problems. They should be in a position to understand where it's moving forward. Now, unfortunately, when we see the traditional trends of the education system, by the time the child is going to clear his school days and is going to get into graduation, by that time the industry has moved multifold forward. So the child is already preparing himself or herself for an obsolete program which may not exist in future. The other day in one discussion I was having with one of the scientists from one premium space agencies, and he was talking about the space junk recyclers. Yeah, so 1400 mini satellites are being launched every day, and they have short-term, short period commissioning. Their gestation is very short, which is from 67 days to perhaps a year, and after that they become a space junk. The kids of this age do not even know that that problem is going to appear after 20 years. The education systems, the engineering colleges, so-called, the whole ecosystem is not prepared for this. We will be able to overcome poverty, we will be able to overcome sustainability issues, global climate change issues, because we know that that's there and we have to take corrective action steps. And that's where this whole awareness and role of industry becomes very important in terms of bringing it back to the age group which is going to face it.
But you know what, actually, a very good ending to that one, because the question then I would ask in all of us who are building technology today to sell, right, to consume, to adopt, who's the actual buyer of that technology? Right? And I'm not purely talking consumer tech where you've got kids coming in. I'm also talking around B2B tech, where it's not a child who's buying that technology, right? Which is where millions and trillions of dollars are being made today overall within the industry. What's the age of that buyer, right? And the impact it has in their decision-making process, and the adoption of new trends quickly, to make new technology available quickly, right? To ensure that what we see in sci-fi movies years ago, which is coming to reality today, right, is coming into commercial applications tomorrow morning, right? But the decision-making process is being taken by a generation which has already gone through multiple rounds of change within the time frame in their working career, correct? The ability to constantly adapt, is that ability to adapt being mapped or married to the changing trends in technology itself, right?
I believe, yeah, Neil, I see a big gap in that marriage, as you call it, in terms of adaptation of new technology, especially with this, tech revolution that has happened in the last whole decade. Uh, 5 years back, flying cars, flying machines was still a concept. Now the industry is ready with that. It's just that policy is not in place. Tomorrow, if government announces a policy, I believe day after tomorrow you will see flying cars all across. Now, there the gap lies. Uh, when we reach out to the crowd, the end user who's going to be using it after 5 years, they are clueless about this. Now, with that advent of new technology will come a million of new opportunities. Just imagine a situation. I mean, I think I'm just doing it candid without preparation, just coming to my mind right now. Just imagine you have a fleet of 1,000 flying cars here in the city. What kind of infrastructure and skilled manpower you require to maintain that? It, it will altogether require a different set of different ideation into it put together. So industry has to play a bigger role, and that's where I think industry, academia, and the future challenges projecting them has to come in together, and that's where when we say space technology or education technology, the way I look at things is space technology is one premium bigger umbrella wherein proximity of errors is zero. Space is ruthless, and any technology which is working for that scale, if we are making somebody aware on that scale, naturally we are creating an ecosystem which starts from the bottom.
Right. That is where also, if you look at it, right, I mean, the analogy that we're talking about is impacting cross industries, right? Autonomous driving cars is not just going to impact the driving or the car automobile industry, but your smart city, smart infrastructure, height of skyscrapers so that it allows XYZ, right? But it also would like to then ask in terms of what other trends do you see within the health or the insurance technology space, right? Because everything seems to kind of gonna be interlinked in a manner of speaking, right? So what are the trends that you see?
So right now, I think most of the insurance companies are also adopting something called as shared purpose model. So it's conceptualized by Michael Porter and Mr. Mark, Harvard professors. So what does it mean? So let's say the customers are there and insurance companies are there. So both of them need the safety of the customers. So both are working towards that. So what does it mean? So if most of the customers are using less claims, they are much more happier. And same goes with the insurance industry too. Less claims, they make more profits. So a classical case study I would like to take up is IAG, that's Insurance Group of Australia. They have been in losses or like barely profitable for a period of 5 years, wherein a lot of collisions are happening. So what they did a proper research. They have actually invested in a research firm which did research for 5 years and understood that there are certain points wherein most of the collisions are happening. So what do an insurance industry do generally? They increase the premiums or decline some of the claims, right? But what they did is interesting. So they actually convinced the government to invest in public infrastructure, increase the amount of traffic lights over there. There are few segments wherein, because of the new ramps, there are some black spots where the collisions are happening. So they have increased awareness and safety over those points. So eventually, what these initiatives did for that particular area, there is 80% reduction in terms of collisions, and they have saved more than $300,000 Australian dollars in a span of 1 year. So that's really incredible. So that is a trend I would like to see even in other countries too. You have to invest in the customer. You have to invest in the customer centricity here, rather than transactional value that you get out of increasing the premiums. So that is where the world is moving. In fact, Greenwoods from the US, they have invested a massive $3 million in a consulting firm to create awareness regarding drowning of kids. That has actually saved $6 million for them too. So these are emerging trends that I see in insurance, which is benefiting both customers and insurers alike.
Well, when you look at the broader impact that technology has had on lives, on education, betterment of lives, or I don't know, right? I'm a very device averse guy, right? I prefer, not to have it in my hand as much as possible, or in my kids' hands as much as possible. Well, and I'm the least liked person in the house in everyone, right? I'm sure it's the same story for everyone else, at least who come from our generation standpoint, right? When we look at the impact technology has had on our lives, it's better, absolutely, 100% sure. It's also had a negative impact and connotation. I was I was listening to another conversation earlier in terms of where the thought is that AI is actually going to make our kids dumber, not smarter, right? Because it's ready responses, somebody else is doing the work, right? We're talking about all of these kind of impact from a trend standpoint, from a revolution standpoint. Where is it coming from? A business application perspective, right? Commercial utilization of technology, life application perspective, right? For a quality of life standpoint, right? And a country application standpoint, where the overall nation does better, whichever country we live in, stay in, and live for, right? From that perspective, when I look at trends today, when I look at all these different layers that keep on coming out, where technology has been adopted, which didn't exist 10 years ago, which may not exist 10 years down the road, right? And from the perspective of embedded wearables, wearable technology to embedded wearables kind of thing down the road, right? We talk from fintech, the way we kind of transact today. There are days I step out of my house without my wallet on me, right? I just forget to carry the wallet because I'm no longer paying cash or no longer even using a physical card. It's tap and go, or scan and go, or whichever way we look at it, right? Impact from both consumer to business, right? I believe the gentleman, you were talking in your previous panel about going into the bank branch after a long time and being impacted in terms of how you could get the service delivered, right? I mean, it's use cases. These are the trends which are changing in terms of actual real life use case scenario, where we see these perspectives. A bit thought from what needs to be done from an education. I'm going to come back to you always on education because really like what you're talking about and doing within the lab future in terms of building the next generation, and then the impact it will have on a commercial and a life thought process 5 to 10 years down the road, because that's where the revolution is going to continue to happen.
Absolutely. I think all countries now, and especially the country that we are sitting right now, is driven by innovation. Those innovative solutions which are going to create solutions for unknown problems is something which we have to prepare our kids for. When I say kids, I actually refer to learners of all age groups, because now with the advent of technology, we all have become kids in a way. They don't know what's happening as we speak. Something changes all of a sudden. Now, for a child, because of this overdose of information, these adrenaline triggers have increased. And another study which I was just going through says humans' attention span has gone below the goldfish attention span, which was funny in a way, but horrifying fact that where we have gone. So if 5 seconds of video entertainment is not engaging you, you just scroll it up for the next one to come, and like that, 30 triggers in next 30 seconds. So practically, a child is getting excited. See, this is a very serious issue. Otherwise, to look at, a child has forgotten to be bored, wants to be excited, energized throughout the 24 hours, and which is practically just demeaning to his mental health to his wellness, and is going to create some real damage in the time to come. So again, as you rightly said, when we see the next 10 years, how we are preparing them for, bringing them to some mainstream interest area, wherein they know what value will they be able to add in future, what kind of skills will not get obsolete, the usage and misusage of technology, and especially when cyber space has become so active, many of us must have fallen prey to some or the other cyber issues, or would have witnessed it, be it little password protection or a bank theft or these deep fake videos. The children need to be aware of all of this, and they should be in a position wherein they can control and create those barricades. What needs to be allowed and what needs to be stopped. So I think the next 8 to 10 years of any child's journey from now has to be quite I would say provocative in terms of bringing in right education space, right technology to them at their hands right now.
Being cognizant of the time and considering we are supposed to be the last session, I'm going to ask a question, and then I'm going to ask a question to all of you, and then I'm going to open it up for questions from the room if you're okay with it. We've been talking about tech trends, revolution within technology. How many of us have stumbled when we walk into a boardroom, conference room, and the AV system doesn't function? Base.
I would just like to add, I remember Ratan Tata saying this. He said we will reach to Mars one day, but AV systems will still not work.
Right. So the basic tech also still has a lot to work around on. But yeah, please, if questions from the room, please.
I suppose I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. But I like your last point. When I check into a hotel room, it takes me 20 minutes to figure out how just to use the lights. I just want to turn off the light and go to sleep. Just buttons and this, like that. Anyway, but yeah, I put it down to my age. But it's the technology around kids is a strong issue for me, having kids myself. And I truly believe it's a great learning tool. But I also, it's, as you said, it stops them thinking. They can't function without it. It's instant gratification that they're looking for. And there was a study done in the UK. I can't remember exactly where, but what they did was they turned the color off on the phone and iPad, and they found after a few days that the kids had no interest in it anymore. They lost this hook of what was coming up next. The color was the huge issue with it. But how do you think, how can we overcome this in the future? Because I'm 51 years of age, so I came from an era where the remote control in our house was my father telling me to get up and turn over the television, to where we are today. So I can understand, I know I'm on technology too much for work, but at least I have some balance. But for children growing up now with technology, as you said, fast forward when they're going to hit their 20s, who are 10 today, how are they going to cope in the world that we're in then?
Can I take this question? In the last decade, I personally have been working with schools ecosystem for the last 14 years, quite extensively. And the misconception that education system has taken as far as technology is concerned is its limitation to digital screens. The digital tools which can be viewed and simulations which can be done. So all the exposure happens on the screens. And because of which, and blessed COVID even deteriorated the situation wherein all children by default mandatorily were exposed to screens. Now, when we talk about technology, I think it's a very minuscule use case wherein screens have to be used. Right? If I have to actually create a traffic management system for the city, I practically just need limited time on the screen for my programming and coding for my other hardware to work on. My hands-on skills are required more. The application of science and mathematics and languages and social sciences, understanding of that brings more vibrancy into the projects that I'm designing. So the limitation that this generation of parents have is perhaps they are not able to give the right set of exposure, considering the limitations of times that they have, because everyone is working around. Schools have got limited scope considering the curriculum that they circulate around. It's not about digital screens at all. And I, very openly say this, and I repeat Sir Ken Robinson's statement that schools are creating, are killing the creativity. Yeah. Why? Because they are again circling around those, some standards. Book problems are not real world problems. They're entirely different. So to, sum up to the question that you asked is, technology is never, I would say it's less than 10% of what digital exposure is required. It's all hands-on skills. So when you are to do robotics, when you are to do some real-time automation, when you are to, as simple as solving a problem of a light, we don't need a digital screen there to be telling us what light is doing.
That's exactly my point. Why do we get rid of this? We made another problem. We got rid of the switches, and now we have a screen that I just want to turn off the light.
Absolutely.
Can I step in on that one, right? Almost similar age, right? Kids, I'm assuming they should be around similar ages. 10 years ago, I took on the role that I'll be the hated person in the household, right? Because my device situation was being compounded by the number of gaming consoles that were coming into the house too, right? So it's not just your phones and your iPads and tablets and laptops, but gaming consoles, right? PSs and Xboxes and the Nintendos and everything. So we had to I had to put my foot down and say X number of hours a day, and that's it. Whether you like it, dislike it, go cry to your mother, go cry to my mother, nothing's going to change, this is where it is. The way what he's talking about in terms of, we are all part of the problem is what I would say. And I don't think it is a technology issue. We've just made it, consumer technology has come down, right? What used to cost, I used to sell mobile phones when it first came out in India, 95, right? A device which could not hold more than 1,000 contacts was being sold for what in today's price would be, say, $500, $700, right? That's it, 1,000 contacts. Today, we don't use our phones for calls. We use it for everything else. Phone calls is the last thing that happens on our phones, in fact, right? The technology's become cheaper, which has kind of made it easier for consumers to consume the technology, making it further difficult for parents in this, because we're talking about kids, to limit and bind them. Till one of us, and it's also a psychological scenario, right? We want to be friends with our kids. I hope this doesn't get aired and I don't, my kids don't see it, but I'm like, no, I'm the parent, right? This is my rule. Don't like it, well, there's a door.
I say the same thing in my house.
Right.
This is a dictatorship, not a democracy. Yeah.
Exactly. And it has to be that way for some things, right? For some things. But when we look at trends, right, and where he was coming from, and the reason why I was asking him and him to talk from trend to tomorrow's trend in healthcare, in education, in space tech, right? Because I was purely coming from commercial application of technology and the different ways things are moving, the market sizes that we're talking about, right, over the next few years. But when we look at the broader spectrum of how technology has pervaded every aspect of our life today, right, the revolution is constant, right? There's nothing today, tomorrow, and day after. Revolution is constant, right? We've got wearable watches, we've got wearable this, that, XYZ, there's no way we can step out of our house without some amount of tech on our bodies or around us, kind of a scenario, right? And this is where the trend is only going to continue. And the reason it's going to continue is because of us. We are the ones building the technology, we are the ones selling the technology, we are the ones marketing the technology and pushing them to consume that technology. So when we are itself part of the problem, the thought is, how do you then navigate, right? And this is, he's spoken about, Steve, and I'm going to continue. And Bill Gates, kids were not allowed devices. The biggest tech billionaire in the world at one time, kids were not allowed devices. Same was true, I believe, with Steve Jobs' kids. Kids were not allowed devices. The guy was put a, iPhone in every child's hand. No, you're not allowed advice. And this is where the distinguishing aspect of us has to happen.
No, I totally agree. It was only 2 days ago that they banned mobile phones in British schools. How it took so long for that to happen is beyond me. And I have this conversation with people where, they're complaining that, until schools make policies and are something, it should start at home. It has to start with the parenting, which is part of my point. As I said to my wife the other day, if our daughter, who's now 15, comes down the stairs and starts drinking a lot of vodka, you're not going to wait for the school to do something. You do something about it. So it should be the same from our aspect. But that was my point at the start of this. We're at an age where we know it. How are they going to know it when they get older? Because it's just a norm for them.
They won't know, right? But you'll be taking the negative side of this aspect a little, right?
But that's just, I'm trying to make life difficult for you. That's just.
Right, because we are parents. I get where you're coming from, 120%, right? But there's a positive aspect to the same impact and embedding of technology within the kids. If you look at kids with special needs, special abilities, actually technology has had a significant impact in their ability to learn and gain knowledge, which was not possible 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So there is a major positive aspect also that comes into play with it.
Agreed. But that's like saying that we're going to get rid of all the farmland,
No comparison.
put a motorway around it. But has it done more greater than good for the mass? I'm speaking from, I'm a father with a child with severe disabilities. I totally understand. It's a little bit like, we're not going to bring the kids on a skiing holiday because one can't ski. Where's the balance going to come into it? It's a very interesting topic because I suppose I'm asking the question because being a parent and an investor, I can see from both sides, but I'm still lost from how do you control it? I've tried everything. I'll tell you a funny story. I have 4 kids, went for lunch. I'm sitting there looking. I'm saying, I might as well be traveling. Everyone was on their phone. So I said, okay, I want the phones in the middle of the table. The first person to touch their phone pays for dinner. And I said, you know me, I'll get up and walk out. Within 20 minutes, I got a message on my watch to see that I had a phone call I needed to take. But I had to leave it. And then at the end of it, I said, anyone like this? Okay, good, we gotta go. Because I gotta get to the phone. So I'm as guilty as they are. But it's a minefield, both from a parent and from an investor.
Honestly, there's no right answer to that by default, right? I mean, I have a similar story. My kids, friends' kids, 4 kids, all sitting, single couch at a friend's house one evening, all on their phones, and we all suddenly realized they're all 4 actually chatting with each other. They're sitting right next to each other, same couch, but they're chatting with each other. They didn't want us to know what the conversation was. They're chatting right there, right? No phone on the dinner table, basic rules, no phone, right? As you said, you go out, you pick the phone, you pay, all of those things, but there is no right answer. Unfortunately, there is no right answer to that scenario.
Another example I just got recall is one father actually texted her child at 2 a.m. on Instagram. What are you doing on Instagram? Through Instagram, right? So the child is like, this case came up in a school while we were just discussing and having a brainstorming session. How parents have to get involved and how we are a part of a problem. So if actually I was so concerned about the child, I should have practically gone to that room and counseled the child, rather than texting her through Instagram of what are you doing on Instagram. So the child will see that you yourself are using it. They may not say it on our face, but they know you yourself are a part of this. So how can you guide us on that? So I think, as Neval very rightly mentioned, there is no right or wrong in this. It's just about trying to find a balance. And broadly, the whole education system, keeping that aside, but some schools, some academic institutions have started to take corrective actions. But yes, minuscule in number as of now.
As I said, we've kind of on the, yeah, but sure, please.
Hi, my name is Tina. I run a branding and design firm. I have a different point of view, slightly different. I sincerely believe that because we grew up in a non-tech environment wherein the phones were not a part of our everyday life, we were not chatting with friends, we were actually going out and playing with them in a playground. Uh, what has really happened is probably we are a little too concerned. In a couple of years, or if not couple, probably 5 to 10 years, we would see that the new generation has a fatigue for these gadgets. Probably they would be in a zone, and I do see a lot of youngsters out there who are not interested in being on Facebook, who are not interested on, being on Instagram because they feel that it's kind of a fake life. Do you guys also see that possibility? Do you also feel that the way we did not visualize flying cars, similarly, there would come a time when the kids won't be interested in these gadgets and they'll go back to the roots, they'll be interested in going out and playing?
Honest, yes and no, both ways is how would address that question, right? Because tech is evolving, and that's exactly what we're talking about today, right? Tech is evolving. How they acquire, consume, and utilize tech will change, right? So today we are worried because it's devices in hand, devices where data download, data fatigue, and everything we're talking about kind of scenario, right? Data overload. But when we look at trends down, what we can anticipate may not even come true, may be completely different, right? I mean, tons and tons of reports, analysis, studies state that the top 3 jobs 10 years down the road don't exist today, right? Which means somewhere it has to be created, somewhere the child has to learn, and somewhere they will deliver that service or that functionality. The predominant part is tech is just the underlying enabler, right? Tech is not creating those scenarios of saying you need to do it. Tech is an enabler, whether it's in health tech, insure tech, ed tech, space tech, banking, life sciences, biotech, whichever way. Tech is just the enabler to deliver a certain output in a certain way, right? Or to achieve a goal of a certain nature. For kids to address the query that you're coming from, it's the yes and no. What exists in their hands today, sure, maybe they may not even want to touch it 5 years down the road, but maybe something new comes up. None of us anticipated gaming consoles to have that level of an impact. When we've all grown up with gaming consoles, right? Ataris and this of the world, right? But in those, I mean, the impact that esports has today, right, is massive. It's massive, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry just in this region, trillions of dollars globally, maybe. It's a new area of commerce. It's a new area of business. It's a new area of talent, right? It's a new functionality enabled because of technology, right? So we can't really come down to the level and say that this will happen or not. I honestly can't predict from that perspective. And I'll give it to my co-panelists to see if they can predict or not. But when I look at tech impact, tech revolution, as we've been talking about, it's going to change. How we've consumed technology over the last 20 years has changed, right? So obviously it's going to continue to change. New things are going to come out, whether it's from making our life better, making our businesses better, ability to do business better, ability to communicate better. I, for one, am one day waiting for Star Trek's, beam me up Scotty tech to come up. I mean, I really want that to happen, right? Because allows me to travel without the fatigue, hopefully, that travel brings to us these days, right? But that's still the child in me that one day, beam me up Scotty happens kind of thing, but yeah.